I wanted to call in because I wanted to call in about your views on morality, and I didn't know what your views were. I didn't know if you were an objectivist or what.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably most accurate to say non-subjectivist, just because people get confused over it. But if you Google superiority of secular morality, you will find me giving a 45-minute lecture on this in several different versions over the years.
Okay. Do you since it's pretty broad, I guess? Do you believe that moral facts exist on how people ought to behave or whatever?
To the extent that any facts exist, yeah. So the way I describe it is, I don't want to go down the road of hard solipsism. I see no solution to hard solipsism. Yes, I could be a brain in a vat as far as I know, or you could all be victims of my. I just don't think that's the case. But I experience some reality. It doesn't matter to me whether it's the ultimate or whatever. I'm convinced that John also experiences that reality, whether he's a figment of my imagination or not. And that means that there are physical facts about the reality I experience that dictate the consequences of my actions. If I douse myself in gasoline and throw a match at me, the physical facts are going to determine what's going to happen to my body. And this is either going to be beneficial to my well-being or detrimental or neutral. And so once we have well-being as an agreed-upon foundation, this is what we're going to look at. We're going to consider the consequences of our actions with respect to the goal of well-being. Then it's no longer a subjective assessment. It may be an arbitrary thing. You know, hey, why do we care about well-being? And so the example that I've used before is chess, because I love it, and the World Championships going on right now. But the rules of chess are ultimately arbitrary. That's a game we made up. But if you sit down and you're playing chess, then we know what the rules are, and we can make determinations about what moves are better than other moves, but we don't yet fully understand it. Chess isn't solved, and that's why we still play the game. Well, life isn't solved either. We know that there are things like jumping off a cliff that are not going to be, in your best interest most of the time, maybe ever, who knows. And so the more obvious questions are kind of easy, and it fools people into thinking that they should have all the answers on morality. And this is a process. We have learned from everybody who's come before about how to live a better life. And what I get quite often is, well, if you don't have some objective, absolute, external foundation, you can't have morality. Well, my objective, absolute, which I guess isn't absolute, foundation are the facts about reality. And if somebody doesn't think that counts as morality, I don't care, because what I care about is well-being. And if somebody's version of morality isn't about well-being, then they'd have to sell me on what its benefit is. I don't know. That kind of went on a little bit, but I hope that clarified some things.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with you. There's certain things in my life that I prefer to do because of my well-being, things like that, because I enjoy living. I prefer to live. But when you say that you base morality on well-being, right? I mean, that doesn't seem like morality to me at that point, because I kind of define morality as what you ought do and ought not do.
Yeah, well, that
kind of seems like a
that's the same. So here's the thing.
It kind of seems
this notion of what you ought to do carries with it an implication of there's a reason why you ought to do this. And in my view on morality based on well-being, you ought to do this because it improves or increases well-being, and that's the thing that we care about. You ought not to do this because it diminishes well-being. So there's an ought in there after you establish the foundation. For divine command theory or something, you ought to do something because that's what God says you should do. Well, I don't know how that. To me, that's even less moral than using well-being as a foundation.
Yeah. Well-being was one of the objections that I had, because it kind of seems like the thing about the morality debate in philosophy is what we determine the moral foundation is. And it seems like a categorical error to me to put well-being as what we ought to, because all the person has to ask is, like you even mentioned this yourself.
No, I'm not saying well-being is what we ought to. I'm saying if we agree that well-being is going to be the standard by which we're going to evaluate things, we can derive oughts from that. There is no intrinsic universal imperative for anyone to care about well-being, just like there's no intrinsic universal imperative for anybody to care about what a God thinks.
Right, okay.
So there's no objection to secular moral systems like mine that has ever been raised that is solved in any way by appealing to theism.
Right. So when you're talking about well-being, right? I just one of the things I'm confused about is can you provide a moral fact independent of your intuitions in order to determine a moral fact for well-being?
A moral fact independent of intuitions. So if well-being is the standard, there are facts about what benefits our well-being and what detracts from it that aren't just intuitions. You cut my head off, my well-being's done.
Yeah, to me, it doesn't seem like it's about objective morality, then. It just seems
okay,
like
then I don't care.
Just basic.
Then what is objective morality, and why should I give a rat's ass about it if what I've talked about doesn't apply?
Because it just seems like you're just filling in the category. And
No. I'm asking a question. What I'm describing doesn't feel like objective morality to you. Then what is objective morality to you, and why should anybody care?
I'm not an objectivist. I'm a nihilist.
Oh, well, then why are we talking?
I thought your view was that you believed objective moral facts exist. I
believe that there are objective facts in the universe that can be assessed with respect to well-being, which I'm equating with morality. If somebody else doesn't equate it with morality, fine. Then I'll just stick with well-being because I don't care what the label is. I care about well-being, and there are objective facts about well-being. I just happen to think that throughout the entirety of human history, whenever people have used the fuzzy language of morality, what they've actually been talking about without realizing it is encompassed by well-being.
Well, to me, that's irrelevant almost. I mean, that's just consensus, right? I mean, I don't see David Hume.
No. It's not irrelevant to say that what people have talked about is what people mean by the word morality is encapsulated within well-being. It's not irrelevant to make that assessment because people are running around saying they care about morality. And I'm saying, hey, morality is kind of ill-defined. Let's see if we can do a better job of that. And it seems that everything you guys mean by morality is encompassed in well-being, so I'm going to use well-being as a standard. At no point have I said that there's any imperative for anybody to care about the label or morality A or morality B or morality X. I don't understand what the objection is. I
don't believe it. You go ahead.
I don't understand what the objection is. People talk about morality. People care about morality. I think that is equivalent to well-being if we're going to create a robust way to address this objectively with appeals to data and research about what benefits and detracts from our lives. And the only thing I hear from theists in particular is, well, that's not morality. Okay. Well, you might as well say that's not peanut butter because I'm talking about well-being and you haven't done anything to rebut, and I'm not saying you, I'm talking about the people that are objecting. There's been no demonstration that I'm wrong about the physical facts of reality, about well-being, or about any of these things. It's just that's not what I mean by morality. Well, okay, I don't give a shit about what you mean by morality then until you define it and show me why I should. And in your case, as a nihilist, I don't even know how that makes sense. I don't know how you being, because, all right, maybe the screener's wrong. It lists you as a theist.
Yeah, you can be a theist and not believe in objective morality. I'm a pagan, so.
Oh.
I don't believe there is an objective source.
Okay.
Right, and I guess we can end it there. I guess I thought you believed in objective moral facts. I just would like to comment on what you were saying because I believe this is an issue. And it's also known in philosophy as a categorical error, right? And
no, you can call it a categorical error. That doesn't mean it is.
Well, it is because morality is about what we ought do and ought not do. And you already assert that well-being is what we ought do, and you kind of just paint the narrative. And we're not.
Oh my God! I just explained this. I can't believe I have to do this again. I'm not saying that well-being is what we ought do. I said that if we agree that well-being will be the standard, that can tell us what we ought to do to improve well-being.
Oh, I thought I said that. I didn't mean to strawman you like that. I thought I repeated what you said. That's what I thought you said. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
If you don't agree that well-being is something that we should care about, then you're not talking about the same thing.
Yeah, I don't believe well-being. I don't believe there's a way, because I think there's a problem, because the more I believe in David Hume's paradox of induction, and I believe the more you can do something like that, I don't believe it becomes objective. I just believe it's relative essentially.
I'm one of the biggest advocates for Hume that you're going to find. He's the end-all, be-all of epistemology and philosophy as far as I'm concerned, and I think you're monumentally wrong, because this isn't, and I'm getting ready to do a video on cascading inferences and this problem of induction as well. All I'm saying is there is a category, well-being. I care about it. It seems that a lot of other people care about it too. It seems that some people care about well-being so much, and yet they are fuzzy thinkers who haven't bothered to dig in on the subject, that they just want to call it morality, and then they want to give way their moral views to whatever some ancient book says or something else. All I'm saying is that we're physical beings in a physical universe, and the laws of that universe dictate what is or is not in our best interest, and that the way to live a better life and the way to assess people's actions is to determine whether or not they increase well-being, decrease well-being, or have no effect on it. That's it. That's the sum total. There's no problem of induction there at all.
Right. Yeah. So you're basically, and let me know if you're wrong, you're basically saying you don't care about morality, right? You only care about well-being, and you believe that there are objective facts you can determine.
I care about morality that I define as well-being. I don't care about someone else's assertion about morality until they define it and explain why I should care. Morality, the notion that Matt doesn't care about morality is basically saying Matt doesn't care about this particular label, because the concept that we attribute that label to is, as far as I can tell, completely and totally addressed to the maximal extent that it can be by my model based on well-being.
Okay.
There is no better system, and there is no better system that allows for improvement that has ever been demonstrated as far as I'm aware.
Oh, okay. So I guess because I agree. I believe that for me, subjectively, I believe in well-being and stuff, and I believe that we can derive objective facts if we categorize morality as well-being. I agree with you on that. So I guess you're, because I remember listening to some videos you had, and I thought you were just a straight up objectivist, I guess. So, some older videos, and I thought I could debate you on from a nihilistic perspective.
Okay.
I guess.
But even if I was, all right, I'm not going to go down that road, because I'm just going to end up mocking the nihilistic perspective. And that's not a fair. That's not a fair response. But all right, thanks, Bryan.
Okay, talk to you later. Bye.
I don't know.
I like the way you frame it. In the past, I would have said that ethics and morality are mostly a matter of taste when you boil it down. But you also have to acknowledge that humans are hardwired to care about well-being and to be altruistic, and it's more than just I like chocolate better than vanilla.
Yeah.
So framing it in terms of well-being and setting up the rules, the rules of chess are arbitrary. The rules that we set up to care about well-being might, to some extent, be arbitrary.
Yeah,
because he, as a nihilist, maybe he doesn't care about well-being.
But he says he does.
Yeah. So he wants morality to be something else that he doesn't believe in, rather than acknowledging that you're talking about two different concepts of morality.
Yeah, in the early versions of the lecture, I described it like this, that you could pick completely arbitrary foundations. Death is preferable to life. Sickness is preferable to health. And suffering is better than pleasure. And you would find out very quickly from the results of that that this does not benefit us. If you begin with death is better than life, or generally preferable to life, then a lot of people are going to die off. And that's clearly, now you could say, yes, but when they die off, there's more resources for me, so it's better for me. There is a real problem of assessing the consequences to me and the consequences to everyone and finding a balance between those. And that's where there's real issues. Nobody's pretending that we've solved all the problems, all the ethics problems, all the morality problems, however you want to frame them. The thing is, there's no religious system that I'm aware of that's ever been proposed that in any way solves any of these objections that they put on everybody else. And if you want to talk about moral relativism, in truth, the outsider perspective is that all religious moral systems are the equivalent of moral relativism in the sense that this is what our community says is moral, and therefore that's the case. And it has this idea that individual communities cannot be wrong about this. And by appealing to a God as the foundation that they can't demonstrate, they're essentially appealing to the greatest moral relativism of all, which is my God says so.
Yeah.
Well, I have no access to your God or what your God says. So really the truth is it's moral because you think or assert that your God thinks or asserts. So that's the, there your cascading inferences there. But.
And even if you think it's really, what you happen to believe is what your God wants, then you're saying that what I think my God wants is the most important thing, and it's not well-being. Yep. I care more about what I think my God wants than I do about the well-being of myself and others.
Yeah, and one of the things I get into it with theists because they'll say that it's not divine command theory. It's God is morality. It's fundamental to his character, and so by necessity he must be affirming those moral things that are truly moral. But the problem is there's no demonstration that what God considers moral. Well, there's no demonstration of what God considers moral in the first place. But to the extent that people are claiming it, there's no demonstration that it is actually in our best interest. And if morality is about anything, I would think it would have to be about what's in our best interest. This notion that the most moral thing we could do would be to exterminate humans, well, that might be what God's thoughts about morality are, but that doesn't mean it's mine. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that it's true. But anyway, I'm off on moral tangents.